Mi gente, you already know who it is. It's Danny Limelight. And I need all of you to subscribe to According to Woods podcast on Facebook, YouTube, and all other platforms.
What's good, party people? This is According to Woods, and I have the honor and privilege of talking to literally not just one of my favorite people in combat sports, but one of my favorite people in general. He is a MMA coach. He is a judoka. He's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and a pretty impeccable dresser. He is the one and only Andrey Gorbachenko. Andrey, what's going on, my brother?
Hey, man. Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm impressed as hell that you pronounced my name right, because I don't think you've ever said my last name before, and it gets butchered all the time, even though it's fairly simple. You just sound it out.
Yeah, well, thanks to my Inglewood High School education, and then, again, my mom's from the British Commonwealth, so her maiden name is Wanganisanini, and it's W-A-Q. Wanga, and it's W-A-Q, and it's 15 letters, and it literally fell off of her driver's license. So it's so I'm pretty good with names. You give me European names. Yep. It's the Thai names that that mess me up. It's the Sujapedges and whoa, okay,
or the Polish.
Yes.
We're neighbors with Poland. I'm from Ukraine originally, but God, man, the 7 Z's, X's, I can't even pronounce them.
Yeah, Joanna Jonjędrzejczyk, right? And yep. It's like J-E-D, like Jed from the Beverly Hillbillies. She's one of the baddest, not just women, but any, sex in the planet. And again, it's J-E-D, I believe, is the first 3 letters of her last name, and I think that might be the only thing that she has in common with Jed Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies.
Probably, yeah. I'd have to agree with that one. Definitely not the looks, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is true, man. But dude, we've seen each other, and it's kind of the story of a lot of what 2020 was, where we would see people, kind of in passing or a little more than in passing, but during this year of 2020, via social media, and everybody is social media is the devil, blah blah blah. We've actually gotten closer, we exchange message. It's weird, right?
Yeah. It's like I said earlier, man, if the situation we're in now doesn't kind of make people realize that we have to work as a society in general, and just humanity has survived on being social since the beginning of civilization, and nowadays it's kind of moving away from that, and I think before this was going on, social media was just we'll browse and look at memes and woke quotes and whatever. But now it's you're actually talking to people, which is great.
I know. That is literally the genesis of this very podcast. And I had a YouTube channel for 2 years, did fuck all with it until July, literally. And then I was just hey, let's see how my friends are doing, and then was able to, figure out new friends and make new friends, and just be again. I love that you mentioned kindness and community, right? Because that's the thing that I think was lost on a lot of people, right? Where kindness. First off, the way that I was brought up, that is genuine, right? You can fake being nice, but being genuine and being kind to somebody, that's something that's visceral.
Exactly.
Something that comes from the human spirit, and you can't fake that, right? So that's the thing. And then the community, right? We are a small part of a larger community, whether that be our MMA community, whether that be, you know, our family, you know, and what we view that family is. It's like, hey, you've got 9 cats. Hey, you've got a husband, you've got a wife, you got whatever the hell. Again, kudos to you, because you know, this life can be kind of callous. It can be kind of coarse. It almost feels like the bottom of one's feet after jiu-jitsu. But, you know, yeah, but I mean, it could be cool. You know, you just throw some lotion, and I theoretically speaking, if we could all be the lotion for each other, I guess. I mean,
and, you know, and all it takes is, all it takes is a little, you know, vocal. It's a vocal lotion, basically. You know, it doesn't hurt to talk to people. And, you know, the way I was brought up, you know, we're originally from Ukraine, in a small town, you know, outside of Kiev, about 40 minutes out. It's called Irpin. And, you know, we grew up living off the land. You know, all my grandparents, great grandparents, they were farmers. You know, we grew all our own vegetables and food and stuff. And in a small town like that, in a communist, you know, Ukraine, you had to share, you know. So there'd be a lady who'd walk down the street with her goat, and she had a goat. Other people didn't have goats, so she'd give us goat milk. We'd give her produce, and, you know, so that community thing is just, it's embedded in me. And you know, like they say, you can take the gangster out the hood, but not the hood out the gun. You can take the dude out of Ukraine, but you can't pull that Ukrainians out of me, you know. So.
Yeah, man, and I mean, there's a wayward, I guess, pickled radish that probably is good on lamb and something like that, and you know, let's call the whole thing off. I mean, just saying. So, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, we had seen each other quite a bit, you know, in the hallowed halls of, you know, Commerce Casino via Star MMA, and I mean, a lot of other MMA, you know, events, you know, over the past, you know, 3 or 4 years, right? So, but that's one thing that I didn't know about you, is like your Ukrainian upbringing, right? So, like, how was that? Because obviously, as well, we should, as people, to kind of carry our, you know, ethnic backgrounds on our back, and be able to share that with people. So, I mean, how did your life and family come to be, especially coming out of the Ukraine?
So basically, the craziest part of, I think, me being born in my early childhood is that my mom was 6 months pregnant when Chernobyl blew up about 90 miles away from us. So, you know, then at the time they started evacuating people after a while of not telling anyone what the hell was going on, you know. That's a government for you out there. Anyway, so I was actually born in Soviet Georgia, in Tbilisi, in September 86. And, you know, after a while, as the dust settled in Ukraine, we moved back to Kiev, to our town out there. And then when the Soviet Union fell in the early 90s, in 92, we moved out here. So it was just me, my sister, and my mom, and my sister's grandma. Half sister, but you know, she's my sister to me.
Wow. Yeah, exactly. It's all family. It's all in the blood, you know. But I think that's nuts. That, I mean, when did you know, at least, of the ramifications of what Chernobyl was? Like, did your mom and such, like, after she moved to Georgia, which, again, we're not talking about the Peach State. We're not talking about the very thing that has. No, not
so
Atlanta.
You're looking at the map and you're like, what city did he say? But what? It's on the other side of the world.
So, I mean, was it in Georgia where she kind of figured out, like, hey, something happened, you know?
Yeah,
or
you know, yeah, and you know, it's a kind of a thing that you don't quite talk about, but you know, what I think is pretty awesome is that TV series that came out called Chernobyl. I think they did a great job. Everything was really awesome. I mean, they left out some things. The weirdest thing to me is they were all British actors. So like, they have a guy named freaking Mikhail Volkanovsky, you know, but he's speaking with a British accent, right? Like, oh my God, Chernobyl blew up, mate. What are we gonna do now? So that was weird, but overall, I mean, it did bring a lot of light, and people were raving about it. And I've only watched it. We probably watched it like maybe 4 months ago with a wife for the first time. We went through them all, but it was really, I loved how it portrayed it. But anyway, after I was born, I had a lot of health problems, and I had blood problems, I had liver problems, and my teeth were freaking basically just jacked up. So when we first moved out here, one of my worst experiences is we had to go to the dentist, and he ripped out almost all my freaking teeth. So, but my mom did buy me a Ninja Turtle after that dentist visit, so that made it all right.
Good. Shout out to mom and the Ninja Turtle. Like, that's a nice little layup, you know. But geez, that's crazy. Do you have any memories of it, or is it all, you know, once you moved here? I believe you were 6-ish when you
about
moved here.
five, yeah, going on 6. We moved here in July 6th or 7th, 1992, straight to West Hollywood, which, you know, at the time had a huge Russian Ukrainian population. Still does, but a lot of them are moving to the valley now, as you know. But early childhood, yeah, I mean, I had memories of it, but being so young, it was mostly kind of the good things, you know, just laying on a stack of hay and with the sun freaking peeking through the little barn and eating pears and apples and things out of the front yard. I mean, it was so green, and you know, it's hard for people to understand that have never kind of experienced it. You know, people who grow up in the city, it's you know, you can explain it in theory, but if you don't experience it, you just country life, man. It's beautiful.
No, 100%. You know, and it's something that I think, at least, you know, from the outside looking in, it's something that strengthened, you know, not just you as a person, regardless of all of the health, you know, ramifications that you had growing up where you did, but also, you know, your family unit. You know, for a female to come over stateside to the U.S. with their kids, like, and especially, you know, from like almost, I mean, pretty much a countryside to, I mean, the bastion of like society, not just West Hollywood, but like L.A., Greater Los Angeles. Exactly. I mean, I remember, you know, my wife and I, because I grew up here, but my wife and I, we moved to Bakersfield, where she's from, right? Just right.
I love Bakersfield, man. I love country music. I mean, I love old school country, but Bakersfield, it's a rough city.
It's definitely that. I you know, but I mean, there's great memories that I have there. But I mean, coming back even from, you know, after living in Bakersfield for like 4 years, and then just being back on like the 405, it was crazy. Yeah, shell shocked, right? So, I mean, I could only imagine what it must have been like for your mom, especially with, you know, young kids and trying to figure out and navigate her way through the world.
Man, it was, let me tell you, it was rough because none of us spoke the language. And, you know, when my mom moved out here, well, we moved out here, she didn't know about Social Security or any of these programs. So she was working 2-3 jobs, you know. Sometimes she was cleaning houses in the daytime. At night, she was working catering. And then other days, she worked on 3rd Street Promenade, you know, in a kiosk. And, but it was rough, man. We slept on the floor for a while, and we didn't have much to eat at times. We were lucky enough to have great neighbors who would literally bring us food sometimes. But like some you see in a movie, you know, like the immigrants into country and freaking roughing it out. But hey, we're doing all right now. But it was definitely a rocky beginning, man. It was,
yeah, you know, and you know, I can only imagine, right? And that's usually like my plight, and my apathy for, you know, immigrants of any country, right? Because my mom, she came over in '82 from Fiji, right? And this is Fiji, where they speak English. Like my mom literally sounded like a dark version of the Queen of England, right? And but she was accosted. I mean, she worked for a pretty prominent family in San Francisco, and I mean, they spat on her and, curse her out. And just a hair short of actually beating her. But, and that's the thing. So, and she spoke English. But just not the way that Americans do,
right.
And that was enough.
Proper English. She was the one speaking proper English, right?
Yeah. Right. So I can only imagine, for somebody that doesn't speak the language and the hardship that it was, because it was even hard for my mom, to the extent where she got with my dad, who's American descendant of slaves from Indiana, and a military veteran in his own right. She's like, well, my kids are American. They live in America. They have an American father, so they're going to speak American like the Americans do. Right, exactly. And it was a difference, right? Like English is what she spoke. She just called it American, right? And every time I would be like, oh, can you pass the butter, right? And she would smack me in the back of the head and whatever, and it's only since she passed that there's a tinge there, but like, I wouldn't dare to speak like that in front of my mom, because again, the American assimilating to the American life was almost like the pantheon of her existence, especially here.
And I think it's hard for people who don't come from somewhere else to really understand that even when you're broke here, you're doing good. You know what I mean? And so just a little side thing, what we've been doing recently, being more active in it, is, well, my sister, she's been helping out orphanages and old folks homes in Ukraine for many years. Before COVID and stuff, she'd fly there every summer for 2-3 months sometimes. She'd visit them in person, and she'd spend hundreds of dollars buying them produce and necessities and stuff, because Ukraine's been at war since 2014, and a lot of the men are going to the front lines, and they're not coming back. So, and Ukraine is not quite as progressive as America, you know what I mean? So a lot of the women, unfortunately, don't make a good living there. It's hard for people with good educations to even find a job there, even before all this was going on. So a lot of the older folks are alone with no family to help them. We got young kids, who are either parents, or either the father dies, the provider dies, and the mom is so broke that she needs to give her kids up for. So my sister would go out every year for many years with produce and necessities, and even when we were over here, we'd always get donations of clothes and food and things like that, and we'd ship it over there. But now that's a lot harder to do. She didn't go this year, obviously, so we've been collecting donations from friends and family, and 100% of that goes straight to the people there. On my Instagram, one of my highlights of my story, Help Ukraine, and go through there and check it out, and just the happiness it brings to these people who are forgotten by society is just it's amazing. To see an old man crying because he's got some freaking salami to eat, and a lot of these older people are blind, and the kids are handicapped, and they're being raised by a single mother. So that's just something that, like you said, coming from a background like that, we were starving at one point. So now that we're doing okay, I want to say that.
And it's so important, right? And again, if you're fortunate enough to be born here and of, I don't want to say non-ethnic origins, but if you're born here and you don't, you're a generation or two removed from the immigrant struggle, or you don't have that at all, it's very hard to kind of assimilate or what have you. But it's because of that. Right, because so many people over generations' time kind of lose their way and perspective of things. That's why these things are so important, and there's a stigma like, oh, this person is working 3 jobs just to send money back to the other country or whatever. But again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is like, we're a community, right? And if you have a little bit more, right, and especially if we're a people that are literally making like feast out of crumbs, you can't spare crumbs or a little bit more if you're eating filet mignon. I'm like, Come on, we're a small part of a larger community.
Yep. And, you know, and look, that just goes back to taking things for granted. And like I said, this year has put a lot of things into perspective for me. Like I said, I was lucky enough to remain working. But look, we work for a company that, you know, we had close to 1,000 employees in the greater Ontario area. So I work in tourism and hospitality. And that, you know, we got hit extremely hard with it. No one's freaking traveling. So we manage a convention center out there. I manage a visitor information center, and then we have an arena too, the Toyota Arena that we manage. And you know, with the security, food and beverage people, parking, all in all, you know, it was close to 1,000 people, and now we're down to 120. And I'm one of the ones that you know that still has a job. So you know, so many people are just they're wherever you apply now too. It's like a lot of recruiters are applying at random schools. You know, oh, you're overqualified, but when you got paying kids to feed, like it doesn't matter what degree you have. Like, you know, with me, it's like if I lost my job, I'd everywhere. Walmart, Sprouts, I don't care. You know, I don't mind getting dirty or doing manual labor. I've done any of that in my life. I started working at 14, my first job, you know. I ran receiving for 5 years. I was a one-man show, so I'd be lugging boxes all day long. You just gotta do what you gotta do. Now it's hard for people to even do that, you know, who want to do that.
No, I mean there was a point where I mean the longest job that I had up until this, up to this point was like almost a 5-year run at FedEx office, the former Kinko's, and went to like 6 different locations with them as a shipping coordinator. And you know, I lost that, unfortunately, and it was because like we ended up having to move. Like our apartment got flooded. We had to move with friends and what have you, move with friends, and the job wasn't able to kind of accommodate that, and they'd rather let me go, you know. And it was just like crazy, and it got so crazy where like I applied to Chuck E. Cheese like to be the rep, like, you know, and you know, and that's the plight, you know.
Absolutely, you know, and like I said, a lot of people are starting to realize now that everything you think you have or have control over, you really don't, man. You can't. And you know, one of the main things that I really dove into this year is Stoicism, and I don't know how familiar you are with that. You know, it's getting pretty popular now. You know, but I think a lot of people kind of look at those things and see, you know, the posts on Instagram, and they see something, some kind of woke quote, and they like it, but kind of only look at it at surface level. But I mean, I dove in head first, and I really started getting into it in 2019, because personally for me, 2019 was way rougher than 2020. You know, there was a lot of shit going on. I did get engaged in March, which was awesome, but then after that, it was just a series of unfortunate events, like back and forth, health problems. Like I was in the hospital, my mom was sick. There was just so much shit going on, and you know, and but there was just these things that kept popping up on Stoicism, and I'm like, well, I'll read it a little later, I'll check it out later. Finally, I picked up the book, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. It's pretty popular. It's been around. It's by a guy named Donald Robertson. And basically it kind of tells you about the Stoic philosophy, mostly based on Marcus Aurelius, who's a Roman emperor. And I mean, I can talk about this stuff for hours. But one of the main things it teaches you is that human beings don't really have control over most of the things they think they have control of. And once you realize that, your life and your stress and anxiety levels just melt. You know what I mean? Like money, looks, the kind of car you have, and all that. And people have been saying this stuff for a long time, but I don't think they really sit down and really try to understand how important that is. Because even, you know, you think you're healthy and stuff, but your arm can get chopped off in an accident, or you can find out you have, not to sound stupid, but if you're able to be sick, be broke, but still control your mind and control your emotions and choose to still be rational and happy in those situations, and you're on the right path, man. You can be happy and smiling when you have a shitload of money, when you're healthy, when you're fit, when you're born with good looks, but when you're down in the dumps and you kind of train your mind to not be in the dumps with you, if that makes sense, then things will just get easier and life starts making sense, dude. It really does. So that's something I really, recommend to a lot of people. Hit me up if you're struggling mentally, physically, whatever it is. This thing has been probably the most positive impact in my life other than MMA.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's crazy because even those, right? Like, I'm reading the book of Outliers, right? And that kind of ideology, there a certain set of things had to happen to get you where you are, and that's usually how I've learned to kind of deal with people. It's just like, even though I might see on surface and this person's an asshole, this person is nice, that might be a pushover or whatever, but there's a certain, like, if any one thing in their life kind of altered just like even 90 degrees in terms of perspective, like, it'd be a different person. That's why my dad, he told me, like, everybody that you meet in life, right, even if it's a baby, but especially if it's an elder, like, you essentially give them ultimate respect, right? But until they give you a reason not to have that your respect, right? But he taught me, it's like, son, you earn it every time. Never go into a situation essentially believing that somebody is going to respect you, because you're going to get your feelings hurt anytime, and that's not essentially what you want out of life, to be exalted or what have you. And again, there's outliers where mortality is fragile thing, right? And again, we got a little bit closer than we were even bargaining for in 2019, closer to it this past year, right? And I mean, just to kind of give a reference point there, I can't remember the name of the documentary, but like, it was on HBO years ago, where there was this, I mean, it started off a documentary about this lady, and the beginning scene is her singing on stage with Aerosmith at Madison Square Garden, right? And then she gets breast cancer, and everything that she thought she knew, everything that she believed to be, got taken from her. Relationships, monetary, like everything. She lived in Upper West Side, Manhattan. All that shit went away. And I mean, more recently, in 2020, obviously the passing of like Kobe Bryant and his daughter and everybody that perished in that helicopter crash. And then in the wrestling world, John Huber, who was in the WWE, Luke Harper and Brody Lee in AEW and in the independent scene, he passed away, 41 years old, like 41 years old, in the perfect of health. And it's just like, he's gone. Like, I can't wrap my head around it. It's weird.
Yeah. It's, there's been a lot of crazy shit going on this year, man. And it's not just the COVID thing, but deaths from all over the place. And, just, I think people's mental states, because of everything that's been going on, have just been really, really shitty. And like I said, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing anyone could do at this point, except you have to kind of just understand that it is what it is, man. And you take precautions and try to do the right thing, but sometimes you just can't avoid these things. It's, you can live a perfect freaking life until you're 35, and then you walk out and fucking piano falls on you. With the kind of luck I have, I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. But like I said, it's how you train your mind to respond to these things, because everything that goes on, in life, you are you're experiencing it, but even if it's a bad shit that goes on, it's still an experience that was created for humankind. You know, I know that it doesn't always make sense, but even the bad things that happen to you or people that you know, it's just that those things were designed by whatever, you know, creation created humanity for human beings. And that can sound a little callous, but it's like nothing that we go through hasn't already been experienced by human beings at one point in history. You know what I mean? Pandemic, wars, it's just human creation. It's unfortunate that those things are part of it, but you just gotta freaking roll with the punches and just try to be a decent human being towards each other. And you know, that's where I think a lot of people are messing up nowadays, is they're focused on the fame and the money and the kind of shit that really, you know, it really doesn't matter in the long run, you know. So, but I think the positive aspect, like we were saying earlier, is this year has made a lot of people start realizing that, you know what, we got to check up with our friends and we got to ask people how they're really doing, and not just on the surface, like, well, how's your day, just as water cooler talk, you know what I mean? And so I think there is a lot of positivity that's coming out of it, you know, in human beings in general. But of course, there's all the negative things, and not everyone can deal with it the same way that a lot of people do.
No, absolutely. Which, I mean, I almost want to call on the carpet, like, you know, your love for Stoicism, your I guess assimilation into combat sports, right? So, I mean, this comes from somewhere, right? This resolve, this seeker mentality and seeker spirit, right? And you know, one of the things that you've done, and you and your wife, you know, your lovely wife, and congratulations on your guys' wedded bliss. You guys are newlywed still, you know.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely, but I mean, one of the things that you've done is it cultivated a, you know, I guess a business. It is a business of cultivating gems and such. But where does this all come from? Like, because I mean, that's just a very strong resolve you've got.
Right. Well, you know, it's just something that we've always both enjoyed a lot. And my first job when I was 14, I was working at a jewelry kiosk on Universal City Walk, selling puka shells and hemp anklets and shit like that. Right. So
I probably bought one in '97.
You do look familiar. You know, so I was always kind of around that, and my mom worked at gem shows. That was one of her, you know, jobs, and she sold amber and stuff for this guy who imported it from Russia. And I've always just been around that, and it's always kind of been an interest of mine. You know, I mean, look at all this stuff. You know, I got a bunch of crap on, and it's not just to look pretty, you know. It's and a lot of people think, oh well, stones and this and that. Well, oh, they come from the ground, so they don't have any energies or meanings or whatever. But then in 20 minutes they praise, you know, weed and shrooms, and oh, it comes from the earth, and they make these great things happen. Well, just because you can't see or feel something, you know, right off the bat doesn't mean that these things don't incorporate it. Anyway, so you know, we both are really into that kind of stuff, and we go to gem shows. We go to a big one every January in Arizona. We're going at the end of the month, and I mean, this is just a mecca, dude. It's people from not just all over the country, all over the world. People from Australia and Africa, and they come out with these gems that they mine and stones and statues, and it's just freaking awesome. It's a great time. It's in courtside. You know, we started this tradition of going out there with a good friend of ours every year. This is going to be our 4th or 5th year now. We go on feed digs. There's some feed digs near San Diego, which is basically you pay about $75, and there's a mine there that they bring out a bunch of, you know, ground from the mine with a tractor and throw it in this big pile, and they give you workstations, and you go through the stuff. Whatever you find, you keep. It's super fun. I think your kids will love it, man. So you should definitely check that out. But getting sidetracked here. So basically what my wife started doing is it's called wire wrapping, and I have a little necklace here. So that's a rose quartz. and that's a rough stone. You know, it's not faceted or tumbled, and we do prefer working with these because they're just more natural. You know what I mean? They're not super shiny or cut up. But and there's another one there that's called an angelite, and this stone was actually found in Peru in the 80s.
Yeah.
So she actually one of her stones, the wire wrapping messed up on it. She had it done by someone, and she's like, I'm gonna try it out. So I got her some wrap at Hobby Lobby. She tried it out, and she's pretty damn good at it, man. So we're like, you know what? We have all these stones. Why not try it? Give people a chance to kind of experience what we're doing here, and it's been awesome. We were stayed up till about 1 a.m. yesterday wrapping some. We're getting orders left and right, and we're not making a lot of money on these things, man. We're charging about $15 to $20 each, but it's really awesome. And she's gonna start doing some more things like custom-made herb and salt baths and stuff based on kind of what your what your healing needs are. So stay tuned for that, man.
I absolutely love it. And that's the other thing, right, is being able to take inventory, right? And that's something that, again, if you have a good job or a shitty job or a good relationship or a shitty relationship, right? These things are kind of window dressing to kind of keep you away from taking inventory of your life and what's important. And again, when those things get yanked almost like a rug from under you, right, you kind of are left like, what do I have, right? And that's one thing that a lot of us were forced to do, right? But then found a whole new life, right? And to me, it's so simple and pure, right? I like, I'm not a big movie buff, but there's a couple that I draw, and it's not the movie itself, but like just some particular scenes in some movies that like I draw from constantly. And one is like the Walk the Line, right? The Johnny Cash movie. And I don't know if it happened or not, right? And you being a country fan, but Sam Phillips of Sun Records, right? Doing the audition with Johnny, right? Mm-hmm. And they start into the song, right? And he fucking stops him. Sam Phillips stops him and is like, imagine, car hit you. You're laying dead in the ditch and you got one last song to sing. Are you going to sing that same tired hymnal that everybody's been doing since the beginning of time? Or are you going to sing something different? Now, I don't know if that fucking happened or not,
right.
But
I'm not sure either. But it doesn't sound far-fetched to the kind of life that Johnny had.
Yeah, right, exactly. But then, so there's that, right? And I think it's not Big Daddy, Mr. Deeds, right? One of the final scenes of that Adam Sandler movie was the boardroom scene where they're all trying to, cajole the company away from Adam Sandler, right? And he has this like moment, this epiphany where he fucking gets to the fucking board and he's like, and he's kind of surveying the room, right? And he picks this like, big Texan oil tycoon looking dude, right? And it's like, sir, what did you want to be when you grew up? It's like, I wanted to be a veterinarian. It's like, yeah, that's great. What are you doing now? I own the largest slaughterhouse in the state of Texas. Like, what the fuck? Your 12-year-old you would kick your ass, right? So that's kind of what I've, tried. And again, it's been a 30 some odd year sojourn, but taking inventory of like what not only am I good at, but also, what is my last song to sing while I'm dying in the ditch, right? And dying in the gutter. What is the thing that I did when I was 7 to 12 and whatever, and always loved? And that has been anything consisting, and contested in a ring and then later a cage, Bret Hart, Randy Savage, that put me in line with like Tommy Hearns and, Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. and everything. And then, you take that to MMA and Uriah Faber in the mid 2000s and shit like that. And it's just like, that's it. So over the last close to 5 years, that's what it's been for me. And especially via this podcast, it's just like, that's my inventory. If nothing else, right, you strip everything else away, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I hope it doesn't happen, but my wife could leave. My kids can hate me. Like, I hope all of those things aren't true, right? You take
to be, right?
Right. But if that happens, what do I have? You take inventory, right? And this is essentially me taking inventory. This is me doing inventory of my life. And this is the one thing that I could do just as well, sometimes better, sometimes worse, sometimes on even keel as some of the people that are getting paid, 80 times what I'm making, right? So I'm like, at least I have this, and as somebody, I almost feel like Booker T's promo on John Cena of limited skill and limited ability. He rose to the pantheons of WWE history. I think he's talking to me because I could never do a headstand. I'm a son of a musician, can't play worth a lick, but this is what I've got. I've got a mic. You put that mic on in my hand, in front of my face, something's going to happen, and somebody is going to be touched, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. And that just life has a kind of weird thing of pulling you into kind of what you're good at. You know what I mean? Whether that be running a Fortune 500 company or being a freaking janitor. You know what I mean? It sounds crazy, but people can be a great freaking janitor. You can learn a lot more from a janitor than you do with a lot of people. All that crap. So, another thing that kind of got incorporated into Stoicism was actually first told by Nietzsche is amor fati, love your fate in Latin. So wherever life kind of puts you, man, you just have to embrace it. And I know it sounds nutty, and I thought it was too, but the more, I've spent hours and hours and hours reading and listening on this stuff, and a lot of the Stoics are, the things that this life and how to, carry yourself instead of just using pretty words, which was why they were hated by so many of the schools back in the day, because people think philosophy is you say some pretty stuff, someone believes you, and then they give you their money or some shit. And I'm good at that. I talk for a living. I've been in hospitality forever. I got a silver tongue. I am good at that, but the actions are more important than the words. You know what I mean? So you just you got to love your fate. And with me, we started in Ukraine, Chernobyl, came here, starved, and then I started working, and then eventually, I kind of just, I don't have a higher education. I never went to college. I had too many responsibilities from a very young age. But I did. I'm working as a manager now. I sit on the board of directors for a California tourism. I'm the chairman of that board, man. And coming from a sick kid in Ukraine to freaking being on this board of tourism for California, which is one of the biggest in the world, is I find that to be a blessing and a pretty humbling accomplishment for me. But like you said, it's like things just kind of. It might not happen in the first 30 years of your life or even 50, but eventually you're going to find what your calling is. And like you said, with MMA, that was probably my first big passion in life. And, I started judo when I was 23. I've always been into MMA. I started pretty late. I've always been into that. My mom actually got me the first UFC on VHS, translated into Russian when we moved out there. So I've been into this for a long time. Sorry, I'm having a little malfunction here with my little partner. He almost fell off.
No.
We got a little hairless cat.
That's summer. Brilliant.
In addition to my family, he's a Donskoy. He's a hairless. He looks like a sphinx, but a lot of people think he is. But he's a Donskoy. His name is Vasily. Very Soviet name.
Like Lomachenko.
There you go. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was still off the couch, so I'm gonna make sure he doesn't break his paw. Anyway, so yeah, UFC 1 translated to Russian. After that, I was like, holy shit, what is this? I've always loved it. Watched K1, back in the day with Peter Ertz and freaking Andy Hoog, and then it was Pride, and I still have all the Pride DVDs. And then when I was 23, I went into a judo studio, and then bam, that was it. 3 years judo, got my brown belt in 3 years. Got my EQ, which is the first step, one step away from black. And then I found BJJ. So started at VMAC in North Hollywood in 2012. Stayed there for a few years. Got my blue belt. Then we had to move to Monterey Park with the lady. Then I started training at Versus in Montebello, which is a Tsunami affiliate. I love those guys. Brian Armijo is the head trainer there. I mean, awesome place. Got my purple belt there. Met a very good friend of mine, Marlon from Predation MMA there, and then I started going there. I teach Nogi there. It's been a rough year. They're teaching out of a park right now because of the situation.
Right.
But, you just got to adapt and overcome. And, yeah, that's about it, man. So.
No, but I think it's absolutely incredible because, I mean, as somebody that also started late, I was kind of fearful of what my parents would have thought, of me getting involved in combat sports because, my mom, funny enough, she wanted me to be the broadcaster. I'd be watching wrestling, I'd be watching boxing, and she'd be like, you know what? Those guys in the ring, they're going to have a short shelf life in terms of not just their career, but their life in general, right? Why don't you be one of those people with the nice button-up, sport coat and figure it out, right? And I'm looking at her, I'm all like, I'm half black, half Fijian, right? I mean, at the same time, this guy, I don't know if anybody knows him, but Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, I don't know, he might be a kind of a name, right?
Right,
but he has similar genealogy. And here I sit at 5 foot nothing, 245 pounds, and I'm like, where the fuck did it all go wrong, right? I mean, but again, mom was right, and in many ways she. Her father, in Fiji was the first non-BBC, and Fijian-born broadcaster in the history of our country. So in many ways, she kind of raised me in the vein of her father, right? So, and whether she knew it or not, that's kind of where it went, which, I mean, it's, I think your mom knew. I think your mom knew, bringing home that tape and translating it into Russian, like she knew what she was doing, and it set the seeds to what ended up being your life, now, and especially, starting late in life, right? But then again, you were doing a lot of the stuff that 20 something and even older folks were doing, was just taking care of your family. So you didn't really get to experience a lot of the I guess the vocational stuff, right?
Exactly.
So now that you have a sense, I mean, you had more of a sense of self at 23 than you would have if you had started at 13, and you really took a hold of it. I mean, you didn't let it go, and it carried you from judo into jiu-jitsu. And I mean, you're a coach. That's fucking crazy for somebody that, I mean, had liver problems.
Yeah.
And look at that's
all the teeth rotting out, right? And I was tiny when I was a kid, man. My nickname or in the neighborhood was Nitka, which means thread in Russian. Because I was stick thin, bro. And now I don't even want to tell you how much I'm pushing now, but it's over 250, I think. But
You've graduated from thread, is what you're saying.
Exactly, from thread to, I don't know, freaking a stick of bologna or something.
But again, it's progression, right? Which exactly. I mean, that's I think that's the underlying theme is the progression. Like, regardless of where you are in life, or and sometimes it's not even, there's a litany of rich people, wealthy people that are like this, like this close. Speaking of thread, like a thread close from like ending it all, right? So money doesn't necessarily, solve everything. One of the, as a parent, the fact that Jesus, Paris Hilton, right? And I'm not trying to begrudge her plight and her situation, right? But literally given everything in the world, and ended up with like drugs and stuff like that, right? So, you no matter which way you go, you're bound to suffer some strife, right? But it's the strife that makes us. It gives you character, it gives you flavor.
And I think that's the difference with people who are born with pretty much everything they need. If you're not clawing your way for needs at some point in your life, when shit like this pandemic happens, or you fucking lose a girlfriend, or you fuck your car up, or you gotta move to a smaller apartment or something, it's the end of the world for a lot of people. And it really shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So I think that's the difference when it comes to people's characters, because you can't buy character, man. You can't.
No. I mean, people have tried.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah.
But again, that's the thing, and I think you're a proud product of everything. Your mom's hardship in Ukraine, moving to Georgia, and again, I'm just like a female. Right. And especially where, females in Ukraine didn't have a lot of advantages. Right. In terms of education, places to work. Right. And especially at a time of the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, the late 80s, early 90s here was kind of crazy, too, because, we had the stock market crash of 87, all of that stuff. But nothing like what was occurring for your mom and what she saw in Ukraine and your grandparents in Ukraine. Which, again, I think you're a proud sum of all of those experiences, the ones that you experience, firsthand, but also some that, by virtue of your genealogy of your mom, your sisters, your grandparents, all of that flows through you, and again, it's like if you would have said, hey, Andrey is not on the tourism board of California, I'd be like, why the fuck not? Like, what the fuck? I demand a fucking recount, sir. Like, what are we doing? And or madam, like, what the fuck are we doing? Because you're that,
Yeah, well, man, I appreciate the kind words, but it's like you said, you build this character throughout your life, and you just some people kind of see that. You know what I mean? You're one of them, bro. Like, the first time I saw you at Spar Star, I'm like, that dude. Look at him. He's got a good energy. And that kind of shit. You feel people's energy, man. And I'm one of those people. Like, some people just have bad vibes. You always had vibes, man. You're always smiling, and you're just you're a really nice person, and you can tell how passionate you are about what you do. And you've interviewed our guys from Predation, and it's just a shout out to Predation. That we're in El Monte, man. We're in the hood. Like, the gym doesn't have fancy equipment. We don't have a ring. We train out of a Taekwondo studio. Coach Marlon has been doing this shit for years, bro. I mean, this guy's a lifer, and I've trained and visited so many people all over LA, man. LA County, it's the mix of martial arts. But when it comes to passion, dude, and the impact that we have on people from that area, a lot of these young kids come in there, not knowing what to expect, man, and you become a family. I mean, I don't gotta tell you how martial arts, deal to people. I mean, change your life physically, but and I think that if I was younger, because when I was growing up, I was working, but my other main thing was punk rock, bro. I was doing punk rock shows and doing stupid shit that could have landed me in a lot of shitty situations, but in the back of my mind, my main focus was mom's sick, we got to pay bills, so I didn't quite cross the line into extremely stupid things, but I could have been, drinking at 14 in alleys and getting mosh pits and fighting people and shit, which is all fun, but if I would have walked into a place like Predation when I was a kid, man, I'd probably be a little fitter now.
I mean, theoretically speaking, but again, it's and thank you for the kind words, but it's something that is absolutely reverberating through you as well. And the thing about it is like, fuck, like that's why I love combat sports, right? Whether it be like pro wrestling, right? Most people, oh, fake, phony, whatever. I don't know. And I met Harley Race as a kid. I mean, not about a few years ago, about 10 years ago. That motherfucker was in a wheelchair. And this is like the toughest, that could bring Andre the Giant to his knees, right? In terms of strength, right? So, like, for me, what better kind of value creation that could you have for a kid than you get your ass kicked by your foe 364 days out of the year, and the one day that you fucking get your comeuppance, it's the biggest stage of them all, right? With the biggest audience that you could have there, all the fucking pomp and circumstance, and you get to kick the ass of your foe and also get a big fucking gold belt that means that you're the best in the world of what you are. Like, fuck, like, and then, of all the fights that I've attended, both live in person and, watching on TV, my favorite part is when the final bell rings and the fucking coaches, you've been there firsthand. Coaches and fighters are hugging and like, whatever, there's cross-training between gyms going on. Like, that's the shit that I love. And I'm like, if two people who engaged in war, right, the generals in their respective coaches, right, after a war can get together, right, and hash it out and just like love on each other and whatever, what the fuck is everybody else doing, man? Like, man. Really?
100%. If you can punch each other in the face and then love each other after, shit. If more people were doing that in the world, we'd be living in a freaking paradise, bro. Yeah. Well, you said cross training. One of our guys, Vinny, our heavyweights, he fought a guy from Bas Rutten's gym and he won. And after that they became friends and he came down and he drove from fucking Deep Valley, I think Thousand Oaks, man.
Thousand Oaks, yeah.
To El Monte to come and train with us. Fortunately I wasn't there that day, but that's the kind of shit that makes this awesome. And it erases. People always say leave your ego at the door, but it does erase your ego, because you realize that when you act like a dumbass in the street, man, it's not going to lead you anywhere good, and a lot of men for some reason don't understand that to this day and age. A lot of people don't have anything to lose. A lot of people don't have a friendly mentality or just want to get into a fight at the bar. People lose their lives over really, really stupid shit. So if people are struggling with fucking aggression or whatever, walk into a damn gym, take a trial. It'll change your freaking life. If you don't like it, then you'll go home sore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Which, and that's, I love that you bring that up, because like, theoretically, right? If you're on the outside of looking in combat sports, oh my gosh, human cockfighting. I mean, that was literally the horns trumpet of a political person in New York who happened to be gay. Right? And he's just like, they're just in there rolling around half naked in a cage and everything. I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? Like, and you're trying to fight legislation. But again, the fact of the matter is, try to be angry and do jiu-jitsu. Try to be angry and hit a fucking heavy bag.
Those are my favorite people to go with, bro.
Yeah, because you gas out in 30 seconds. All the anger, all the fucking, I'm gonna 30 seconds and you're fucking like doubled over. You think you got a little bit closer to your maker than you got comfortable with. And it's just like, that's just what happens. And it's that fight or flight. It's like, either you're gonna stay and do this and not. And the cool thing about the combat sports, right? Like, and especially like jiu-jitsu, right? Where, I mean, look at all of the social stigmas that just exist in like one roll. Like, you just stay for one roll, 3 to 6 minute roll, right? You're like, oh, I hate being around sweaty people. I hate being sweaty myself. The hell if somebody, yeah, yeah, exactly. Somebody rubs their gi across my face and hasn't washed it. You know, they've got their literal genitalia in my ear. I could listen to what their insides are like, their niblets are, and all of that gets dashed in jiu-jitsu, like all of that. And then the best part is when the fucking bell sounds, guess what? Slap hands, you did good. This is where you could have been, whatever. Pivot your hips this way, whatever. And then you do the exact same thing to the next person you roll with. And it's like, where else?
Yeah, people just they don't understand it, and it goes back to knowing something in theory, but not. I always say, you can think and try to describe to a person what a freaking shit sandwich tastes like, but if you never tried one, you really don't know what the fuck you're talking about, right? So that that's where that comes in from, man. And look, I've struggled with freaking OCD and germophobia since my mid-teens, and it was really bad at one point. I was on Zoloft, Abilify, and lorazepam cocktail, bro, for years. It was that bad, really crazy. This girl in my neighborhood when I was around 8 pushed me off a handrail and it cracked the back of my head straight down. Flash in my eyes, blood was leaking. I thought I was gonna die. My mom wasn't home. I ran past my sister. She was sitting outside. She turned white. Lady upstairs was a nurse, bandaged me up, said, "All right, go to sleep." So probably not the best advice after a concussion that bad. But I slept for a while, and so I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But that was like, and still to this day I struggle with it. I'm not on medication anymore, but I've been doing this COVID shit way before it started, bro. Sanitizer everywhere. You can ask my boys I train with. I got rubbing alcohol in the car. I come out, I'm rubbing myself down, fucking disinfectant wipes. I don't fuck with that. But when I'm in the gym, that shit it's gone. It's non-existent. My mind's elsewhere. My mind's on flowing, teaching, submitting, getting submitted, whatever it is, punching people, kicking, getting hurt. It's fucking awesome. It's not for everyone, but you got to try it. You got to try it. And whoever you are, you got to try it out. Really, it might just change your freaking life.
Absolutely. Which, I mean, I love that you kind of said that. It changes your fucking life, right? Because what do you think has been like the greatest byproduct of you being engaged in combat sports?
With me, man, it's the positive effects that I have on other people, hands down. When I started when I was 23, I was drinking all the time. I was eating like shit. I was playing video games non-fucking-stop. I wasn't doing any sports. I was like 250, but zero muscle mass, Now I'm 250, but look at these guns, man. I'm just, naturally husked, baby. But at that point, man, I just looked like a turkey, bro. Small shoulders, gut hanging out, nothing good. So that's one aspect of it. I dropped down to my prime. I was about 190, and I look. So losing weight is one thing. Learning how to defend yourself, learning how to fight, that's all cool. I think a lot of people think, oh, like you said, people are ignorant to what it actually entails. Like, oh, you're learning to beat the shit out of someone or hurt someone, but it's massive, you know what I mean? But yeah, the most positive thing is just having people come in nervous, scrawny dudes or overweight people or older ladies, or it doesn't matter who it is, dude. They come in there, and a lot of these who started or can be socially awkward, and they're just kind of fit in somewhere. They might not be super social like me and you, Not everyone's born with that blood. So pulling them in there, teaching them how to fight, and just giving them confidence, making them feel like they're a part of something, dude. You can't beat that. Because, like I said earlier, man, human beings, we gotta freaking vibe together to survive. And I think in one of my main philosophies, I surpass a Stoicism. Hinduism, Buddhism is other people, no matter what it is. Whether it's, helping give a homeless dude a few dollars or you know, changing someone's life from being a drug addict or alcoholic when they come to the, you know, MMA gym. Do the right thing. You know, it's not hard. People just that's I think society nowadays is pathetic. Man. They don't have passion. People that are poor. They're worried about likes. They're worried about, you know, about how they look, their cars, you know, their significant other is. And that shit doesn't matter, man. Just be a good person, help other people out, and there's not, you know, there's not actually changing someone's life in one way or another, or even just positively affecting them, whether it's for a day or for years.
No, 1,000%. And I mean, obviously, you kind of touched on a couple things, but I mean, I guess it might be either one or like a 1A, 1B question, right? But do you have a favorite moment as a coach? Like, or could you describe that moment where like somebody that was struggling with a particular move and they get it and that fucking flicker happens in their eye? You could almost see it wash across their face, right? Like, what are those moments like?
Well, we'll start off with the coach thing. You know what I mean? Like every time you're in the corner and your guys are fighting, bro, you can't fricking explain it, dude. The emotions are so freaking high. I mean, and me, I'm not quite an emotional person. You know, that doesn't mean I'm not passionate or that I don't care. It's just I'm freaking Ukrainian, bro. You know, I kind of look like Fedor, and unless you really talk to me, people are intimidated by me. You know, I look like I can be an asshole. Sometimes I am. Ask my wife. But you know, when you're in there and you have a fighter that's going up against someone, win or lose, dude, the emotions are just nuts. And when you have someone who's in there who are thinking, oh well, these guys, they're one, maybe they're in better shape, or they train harder, they're from a bigger gym, or you know, their record's better than mine. They go in there and they fucking beat this dude. There's nothing in the world. And it's not about the win. It's about them not ever fucking doubting themselves, as cliche as that might seem. You know what I mean? Like, they go in and even if they lose and we'll go downstairs and they're bloodied or scratched up and they're breathing hard and heaving from the fucking adrenaline dump and sometimes crying, but you're there for these people. Like when you're training, you're beating the shit out of each other, you're teaching them things, you know, and then it comes down to that moment and fucking win or lose, dude, it's you just can't explain it, man. The joy that you feel is just it's tremendous. And then as far as the spark, my favorite thing is when I'm rolling with someone, you know, or belt, or is new or whatever, you know, and they submit me, bro. They see me, you know, and now I'm a purple belt. I should be way further because I just haven't consistent with actually being a part of a gym with a grading system. I used to care about that a lot. Now it's like there's way more important things. I'll get there eventually when I need to. But you know, I've been grappling for 9 years in jiu-jitsu and even more in judo. So I'm a tough cookie. I mean, I won't say that I'm on a champion or anything, but when you're rolling with someone and then they nervous, but once we start rolling, because I don't roll crazy. I don't.
So you're putting somebody in a situation, even though you agree to it, it's a piece of the owner.
And they get on me. Like they just want to freaking help, you know. But yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite things is when, like, and then again, it puts that doubt, you know, away in their mind. They can't admit this guy is bigger or freaking a higher rank or whatever.
No, and that's it. You know, watching somebody overcome their, I mean, they're theoretical, but also, I mean, totally tangible, fundamental darkness, things that, you know, that you know, I think it's human nature where you have that that creeping of doubt and dissatisfaction and with self, right? And you could listen to that, but then when you have something again that is absolutely tangible, that you could be like, hey, on that one day, right? Like I was as good, if not better, than anyone in the class. It's just like what that does. It's such a visceral emotion, right? And again, I don't want to be like you have to be there to feel it or whatever, but it's something that you absolutely have to, and that's one thing that I also feel with our community, right? Once you stepped on the mats, right? Whether it be karate, boxing, MMA, jiu-jitsu, judo, sambo, catch wrestling, right? One thing that is absolutely clear, we all train on mats. That's it, right? It's all canvas everywhere, right? So with that all being said, it's just like in one aspect is like I look at it, and this is why I feel so passionately about it, because to me, if Van Gogh and Picasso, could turn art into out of a blank canvas, right? Well, the Sparse Cage was blank before it, but damn it, what is going to happen by the end of the night? There's going to be some masterpieces that are spilt out. Across it, right? So for me, that's what it is. That's where the emotion comes from. Or like you are literally seeing the truest, I guess, expression of a person's being, right? I was lucky enough, thanks to Albert Morales, being at UFC 209 and the Mirsad Bektik versus Darren Elkins, right? And Joe Rogan talks about that. This is like Bektik was beating the shit out of. I mean, as you kind of know about Darren Elkins' fight, he was a bloody mess.
He's a beast.
He's a beast, but he was a bloody fucking mess, man. It was just all like he looked like a Klingon and shit like that. It was, it was not right. Wasn't pretty, right? And when he knocks out Bektik, right, after getting his ass whooped for 2.5 rounds, beat from pillar to post, right? I mean, didn't have the best of seats. I was kind of like, up, whatever. When that happened and you fucking grunted, I heard that shit. It made hairs on the back of my neck fucking stand at attention, Or Jalen Turner versus Richard Leroy at CXF 8 at Burbank Marriott and Convention Center. Like, fuck, man, that is. I mean, those two are the greatest fights that I've ever seen live. And again, for people that don't get it, like you show them those fights, and like. That is the gateway drug. That is you'll figure out what this thing is about and why you're so passionate about it.
Yep. And it's like, and I guess like I'm not a big sports dude. I don't really watch ball sports or I mean I like soccer because by default Eastern Europeans, but I think MMA is way more personal, and you got two guys in there, and it's everything one guy has against everything the other person has. So, I like it. It's the purest form of competition in my mind, and that's been kind of going on since the freaking ancient times. It's the Stoics also compare life to one of the quotes is it's a lot less like theater and a lot more like wrestling because you have to be tactful. You have to control your emotions. So. Yeah, like it's hard for people to understand, and I guess it's like you can say the same thing about football or something. I've never played it, I respect it, but I guess people maybe who have played it, they're more passionate about it. But to me, there's nothing that compares. I did play soccer, I skateboarded, I rollerbladed, I played basketball when I was younger as well. Nothing even comes close to this, bro. I agree 100%.
Yeah, well, I mean, see, and I could throw rugby in there as well, but the thing about it is, like, we kind of are until we have too much kava on the night that we win, and by the time the second round comes about, you kind of muck it all up is what I'm saying. But it's weird because even in those, right, whether it be football, like you look at other like very physically taxing sports, right, like a football, like a rugby, right, and all of those though have game plans. They basically are cultivated by coaches and everything, and disseminated over game plans, right? But the same thing happens in MMA. The same thing happens in Jiu Jitsu. The same thing happens in Judo, right?
Yep.
And then you get fucking punched in the face. Somebody, or errantly, just like in grappling, right? You're rolling, trying to transition, and they're fucking, the back of the ball of their foot hits you, and then the jaw just right, and you start seeing stars. And that to me, I think, is the difference, right? Because that, like, it's the pure, to me, combat sports is the purest form, and again, nothing to take away from the athletes and warriors that rugby players and football players are, or whatever. But fuck, look no further than Alexander Volkanovski, who had a professional fucking rugby career, and he was like, fuck this, I want to do MMA.
Yeah, and God, I forget his name. There was I mean, you had Bob Sapp too, right? Football player, and then you had there's a guy in the UFC now, man. I'm forgetting his name, but yeah, he was a professional football player. So many people leave their athletes, or God, freaking Wonderboy Thompson was he a teacher or substitute?
Yeah,
teacher? But Ace Franklin back in the day.
Rich Franklin, yep, damn right.
Yeah, Rich Ace Franklin. So it does happen with other sports, I guess. People leave there, but I think it happens way more in MMA. Now, I don't know if it's because it's the popularity, but I don't even think it's that. You got the fucking fat white dude with a polo shirt in the front row of UFC getting drunk on Bud Light, screaming, stand him up, this ain't fighting, But people who really understand it, and there's even people who have never really experienced their train. Some of them are extremely passionate about it because they at least understand what these people are putting on the line, man. I mean, it's your mental health, your physical health, your relationships with people, with your family, when you're not being able to fucking eat a greasy meal, and it's hell what they go through. And back when I was competing, the most I've cut was about 20 pounds in 2 weeks, bro. And the shit's not easy, It's not for someone like me who loves eating. My wife's Peruvian, bro. I mean, she gets down in the kitchen, man, with all kinds of food. She cooks amazing. And, it's just, I want to say, back in the day, I had way worse places. I drink all the time and
exercise. And
now my main vice is
I mean, but again, it's all perspective. I think, and shout out to Steven Frontroth. He says, "Pillars, dope usage." So, dope usage of pillars to you, good sir. Damn right. But dude, I mean, fuck, dude. There have been so many people that have helped cultivate. I mean, my friend, my family, my brother, Andrey Gorbachenko. But so let's give them their just due right now, man. Let's get some shout outs out of the way, professionally and personally.
Well, shout out to all the people that I've ever trained with. I started judo at Sawtell in West LA, Sawtell area, Sawtell Judo Dojo. You guys looking for judo in West LA, that's a place to go. And then Hollywood Judo there afterwards. That's our sister school with them. Sensei Marodi's a freaking monster, bro. Shout out to them. VMAC, my first BJJ gym in North Hollywood. Guys, check them out. Marcelo and John, great freaking people. Love you guys. The Versus, Fight Fitness in Montebello.
Wiggle my jiggles.
Miss you guys. I'm gonna come visit sometime soon. And then Predation MMA, man. That's the home gym now. And can't wait to actually get back in the studio and get some more fights going and get some more Spar Star wins, man. And please check out my Instagram. It's Knee Barbarian. Alegria Alchemics is our stone and spiritual company. It's ran mostly by my very talented wife. And please check out my highlights with Help Ukraine Any donations you guys want to give, they go directly to really struggling people out there. It's wintertime. It's super rough. Anything you donate, 100% goes to someone that you choose, and we show pictures, and we provide receipts and all that if you need it. So remember, guys, be nice to one another, and just do the right thing. Don't be apathetic, and you'll feel a lot better about yourself if you do that as well. Promise.
Damn right. Fuck, man. You hit everything. You hit all of your cues without even whatever. I was gonna ask you.
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm just saying, bro. But Andre, I'm just saying we are. But Andre, again, it has been my honor to have you and chop it up with you and give the people a little bit more about your upbringing than they knew before, because I think it's awesome. And if we could just take time to kind of learn about each other, fuck, man, that's kind of half the battle, man.
Absolutely. Even more than half, bro. I gotta say, it's the final thing, man. It's like you have every answer to most of life's questions at the tip of your fingers now on the phone. For people to remain ignorant in this day and age is just, I don't understand it. So just, be nice to each other and frickin' ask how your friends are doing. Ask a stranger how he's doing if you have to. Nothing bad will come out of that.
Damn right. And nothing came out of this thing right here, because and my goodness, just check out his. You've got probably two of the best themed names in terms of your Instagram name. You've got Lee Barbarian and Leonardo Di Grappolo. That shit is just.
They say I look like Leonardo back in the day. I look like him even more. Now I can be his, overweight stunt double if he's playing like a single dad in the 80s or something.
One can only hope. But Andre, thank you so much for joining us here at According to Woods. Again, you guys check out his Instagram, as well as he and his lovely wife's Gem Instagram account, because it is amazing. Literal. I'm talking. It's not just verbal gems, but it's gems that you could speak highly of verbally. So that's what we're doing there. And again. Yeah, thank you for joining us here, you guys, on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And if you haven't already done so, we warmly encourage you to go ahead and like, share, and subscribe to According to Woods on all of the various platforms. And Andre, you're subscribed, right?
Absolutely. You kidding me, man? Thanks for having me. It's been a blast, man. And to quote one of the greatest people that has ever faced this earth, take care of yourselves and each other, Jerry Springer.
Yes, damn right. Shout out to Jerry and Steve Wilkos. So shout out to those motherfuckers. But yeah, if I'm subscribed to my podcast, Andre is, and if you don't take our word for it, here's pro wrestler Zeta Zhang.
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods.
The fucking intro didn't go. My goodness, what the fuck is going on?
Hey, this is Zeta Zhang. Make sure you subscribe to According to Woods YouTube.